Hey everyone, I'm Joe, and today it's time for me to do a video that's always popular on every booktuber's video at the end of the year, and that is my favourite books of the year, in this case 2016. There are 10 full-length novels, 2 novellas, and 3 short story collections. And without further delay, I'll get straight into talking about the books, otherwise this video will be even longer than it already is going to be. And I will talk about them and display them in the order that I read them throughout the year as well. And the first one is Disassembly by Tom Sharpe. I knew I'd have to have at least one Tom Sharpe book on this list, frankly. And I have. I read several of his books last year in 2015 and absolutely loved them. This is another one that I loved, but frankly I loved all of his books. I've got 8 of them and all of them are brilliant. This one is a dark satire like the rest, and this one is set in the Africa during the apartheid years over there, and basically it's Tom Sharpe being extremely brutally sarcastic about the apartheid and how stupid apartheid was and still is. And this book got me laughing so much I was crying. I was red in the face. I thought I was going to break a rib. Actually, that happened with several of his books. And it's just brutally funny, whilst also making a really thoughtful and sincere point about something that Tom Sharpe obviously cares about. I mean, he lived in South Africa and he essentially got kicked out of South Africa without too much political goings on happening. And basically said that if you don't leave South Africa, then he would be killed because he was against apartheid and the government didn't like him, basically. So he had to sort of leave and come back to England. So this is a brilliant book, well worth reading, and just make sure that you're in the right mood and your ribs are okay, because this will likely hurt, physically hurt to read it. It did with me. Next up is Nine Fox Gambit by Yoon-Ha Lee. This is a science fiction debut novel, well, full-length novel. I've read a few short stories by Yoon-Ha Lee in the last year as well, which I greatly enjoyed. This is a full-length novel. It is the start of a trilogy, I believe, called The Machineries of Empire, or something very close to that. And frankly, I'm now very eager to read the second book, which should be out in 2017, I believe. This was brilliant in every way. It's a non-Western science fiction. It's got some very clever ideas in it. It's got some slightly confusing ideas as well because it's non-Western, so I'm not quite used to the writing style of it. But it is absolutely brilliant and really well worth your time. I would really recommend this to science fiction fans and anybody wanting something a little bit different, and especially different to the normal Western type of writing, which frankly most of the other books in this video are. Third is Central Station by Lavi Tidar. This is a science fiction book. It was originally published as such individually as the individual short stories over the course of about 2 years, but Lavi Tidar's original plan and his hope was to always publish it in one format, and indeed that is what this is. It's about 12 or 13 or 14 short stories, I can't remember exactly how many, and they all sort of lead on from one another, but they all stand fully separate, set around the location of Central Station, which is in Tel Aviv. And this again is another one that was extremely well written, and I was surprised by it because I didn't really know what to expect, but I didn't expect it to be quite as fantastic as it was. And I loved this book, I really did, and I would like to read more by Lavi Tidar, preferably in 2017. Fourth is Infomocracy by Malka Older. I got this from Nikolay, and I really didn't know what to expect from it at all, because I sort of got it almost on a whim. It looked and sounded quite interesting. It is a semi-political book about a world where country borders are kind of sort of being eroded away essentially, and now the world follows this alternative voting and political system, where everything is in big blocks of 100,000, and it's a curious book. Not a lot happens in some ways, but also a lot does happen in others. It depends how you view it. It's a really curious book, and Malcolm Older is writing a sequel, or at least another book set in the same world anyway. I'm not sure whether it's going to be a full sequel or not. Hopefully that will come out in 2017, because I really like this book, and frankly I am looking forward to anything else by Malcolm Older, and indeed I will be looking out for Malcolm Older books in the coming year and seeing what else she's written, because this was impressive and I really greatly enjoyed it and would greatly recommend it. The fifth book is Burning Chrome by William Gibson. This is a collection of short stories by William Gibson. This was published a year or two before Neuromancer, which is William Gibson's most well-known book. This is science fiction, partially cyberpunk, because obviously it's short stories. Some of them are cyberpunk, some of them are just near future, sort of techno thrillers, which is Gibson's other preference for writing. And this is actually a very important book to science fiction and to cyberpunk, because everybody considers that Neuromancer is the first modern cyberpunk novel, and indeed William Gibson is the father of cyberpunk. Really, one of the short stories in this actually is a precursor to Neuromancer, very obviously. So you can tell that Gibson wrote this short story in this, and then he liked the idea, so he expanded upon it, and obviously went in a completely different way as such with it, but that basically became Neuromancer. So this is important, frankly, for that reason, and I'm really glad I read it, because some of the short stories in it are really quite unusual, and they've got some really interesting ideas, and they're quite big ideas written in a very small amount of pages. So this was basically an impressive piece of work, which I greatly enjoyed. The sixth book was Embassy Town by China Mieville. This is science fiction. China Mieville writes in what is considered New Weird, and New Weird is appropriate because this book is indeed weird, like every book Mieville writes. They're just weird, bizarre. The ideas are just really unusual, to say the least. And this one, I'm not going to try and explain because I did a separate review of this. Well, actually, I've done separate reviews of most of these books, actually, so I'll link all them in the description box below. Well, this is about language and about communication, and not just language, but about the absolute fundamentals of language and miscommunication between people and races. This was a really thoughtful book. Not the easiest book, unsurprisingly, because it's China Mieville and he writes in a really bizarre way, but if you can stand his writing, which obviously I can by this point, then you'll get a lot out of this book. And indeed I will reread this book in a few years' time, because there's bound to be things with this book, like all his books, that you've missed the first time around due to the rather unusual writing style, let's say. The seventh book is High Rise by J.G. Ballard. This is a dark satire with social commentary. It has a sort of vaguely science fiction feel at times, but most of the time it's not. It's just social commentary and dark satire. This was written in the 80s, although it is still completely relevant and lives up to today's standards about the way we live, quite literally, and our homes and what homes mean to us. I did a separate review on this, but I'll go into quite a fair bit of depth about it, so I'm not going to say too much more now. But it was a surprise. I mean, I bought this on a whim in a bookshop earlier in the year, one of the few books that I did this with, and I'm really glad that I did this, because this was a surprisingly brilliant book and one that really makes you think, and I definitely want to read more by Ballard. I mean, he's actually wrote quite a lot of books himself, so I'm definitely interested in getting into something else by him, because I think quite a few of his books are sort of dark satire with social commentary on various aspects of society and the way the world works. So it'd be quite interesting to see what else he can manage. So I've got quite high hopes for him overall. The eighth book is The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. Joe Haldeman served in the Vietnam War. As a lot of soldiers who served in the Vietnam War, he was profoundly affected by what he experienced over there, because the Vietnam War was, well, horrible to say the least. And this is an anti-war novel about war, its effects, and frankly how pointless war is ultimately. War only serves the people that are behind it in government and things. It doesn't serve the civilians of the countries involved, and it doesn't serve the soldiers. It's just war almost for the sake of war in some cases. And this book is extremely thoughtful, extremely poignant, and extremely powerfully written. And I would recommend this to all science fiction fans who just want a very powerful, well-written work to dwell on and think about, because this was frankly brilliant. I did a separate review of this, obviously as well. The ninth book was The Prestige by Christopher Priest. This is probably the most well-known book out of this whole video, mainly due to the fact that in 2006 they made a film of this with Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, and it was directed by Christopher Nolan as well. So it's got some pretty big hitters in the film. The film was brilliant. I read that first all those years ago, 10 years ago now. I finally read this year. This is just as powerful and just as fantastic as the film is, but in different ways. I did a separate review of this, so I'm not going to say too much now. But if you think you know what the plot of this book is going to be because of the film, then you're mainly wrong, because this goes in a different way. And it's just as brilliant, but for different reasons. And frankly, I love this book. I actually met Christopher Priest briefly as well and got him to sign this book, and I had a quick talk to him, and I'm actually quite pleased that a comment that I made between the book and the film, something I said to him, he is actually surprised, because he actually said that nobody's ever brought this point up to him before, ever, in over 20 years that this book has been published. So I feel quite pleased that, I did something that nobody else managed. And finally, the last full-length novel that I'm classing as my favourite of the year was Crashing Heaven by Al Robertson. I met Al Robertson as well at the same time as Christopher Priest, and he was a really nice guy. I talked to him a little bit about the book and his forthcoming books in the series, which I am quite looking forward to. This book is frankly just really fun and extremely well written for a science fiction debut. It is cyberpunk. The main two characters in it are frankly brilliant. It's a pair of characters who are unusual to say the least, considering it's a man and a AI that's implanted in his mind. They're a weird pair. They're really funny. It can be really dark as well in places, and it's just really well written, and it's just really impressive debut, frankly, by an author. And I'm just glad that for a change I've actually started reading an author from the very beginning of his career rather than towards the end or when the author is dead, which frankly in my case I tend to read a lot of books when authors have already been going for a long time, so it's nice to be in at the very start for a change. So that's it for the full-length novels. Now I'll talk about my favourite short stories or novellas. Now for this there are two of them. They are directly related and indeed by the same author, and that is Penric's Demon and Penric and the Shaman, both by Lois McMaster. Bujold. I have never read any Bujold before this. These were my first. They won't be my last because they were frankly brilliant. They were beautifully well written. They were just fun, great characters, great world, and I want to see what else Bujold can mention. I read these due to Rachel, who I both have to blame and thank for them. I have to blame Rachel for something because it's been too long since I've blamed her for something, sarcastically. And I just love these books, frankly. I would greatly recommend them. There is a third one out as well, which I have not yet read or bought, mainly due to the fact I'm not buying any books until January now. But I do want to read the third one because I would assume it's going to be brilliant, just like these two were. So I would greatly recommend these. It's just a very fun, fast fantasy adventure. So now on to the final part of the video, and that is short story collections. There are three of them that I'm going to talk about. The first of which is Nocturnes by Kazooie Ichigo. This was my first ever book by Kazooie Ichigo, and it won't be my last. This had 5 short stories in it. I got it from the library, so I'll put a picture up on the screen. and this was frankly brilliant. All the stories have got a theme in them, which I did a review about, so I won't talk about too much now, but it was beautifully well written, extremely thoughtful. The interconnections between the stories was frankly brilliant, and I was really surprised by how much I actually liked this. I do want to read more by Ichigo in the upcoming year, and indeed I fully intend to, so I'll see what I can find by him. And frankly, this was just a brilliant short story collection, really worth reading. Next up is Her Smoke Rose Up Forever by James Tiptree Jr. James Tiptree Jr. is the pseudonym or pen name of Edith Sheldon. She used that name because frankly, when she was writing most of these stories, she wouldn't have ever got published if she'd used her real name, because she's a woman, and at the time sexism was even worse then than it is now. It's hopefully, I like to think, a little bit better nowadays, although it's still there, unfortunately. This was a short story collection that I read with Rachel, the person who I blame earlier in the video, and this was a brilliant collection. The short stories in it were quite varied in terms of topic and subject and writing style even, but they were all really, really good in their own way. They had a great variety of ideas, and I just really enjoyed this book. This was one of the best short story collections I've read in years. Well, the other two were as well that I'm going to talk about, and overall I just loved this book, I really did. And finally, the last book of this video is Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. You may have heard of this book more recently to do with the fact that they made a film out of the title story, Stories of Your Life. The film was called Arrival. It was out at the very start of November, so it's quite recent. And that short story was extremely powerful, poignant, and very emotional. It was frankly brilliant. I read this short story collection with Rachel as well. Rachel loves this book, and now I know why, because this book is frankly brilliant. It is extremely powerful, amazingly well written, and frankly I want to see what else Ted Chiang has written. I think there is another short story collection by him as well. I think that seems to be his thing, that he writes short stories over so many years and then publishes them in volumes like this around certain themes, and frankly I'm very interested to see what other short story collections there are by him. I mean, for all I know, this could be the only one. I may be wrong, but I think there's another one though, at least one more by him. So I'll look into that, and I would greatly recommend this book because it's frankly amazing writing and really emotional and thoughtful, frankly. Just frankly fantastic overall. So with that said, that's it for all the books, and indeed that's it for the favourites of 2016. I read a really interesting and very selection of books. 11 of them were science fiction, which frankly is not surprising if you've been watching me a while, because I read a very large portion of science fiction. I loved all these books. Hopefully 2017 will contain just as many brilliant books as this year. Please let me know what your favourite books of the year are, and we can have a discussion. I'm always open to new ideas on books and authors and things. Frankly, I mean, that's what I do this for. I want ideas for myself as well as giving other people ideas. All my social media links, as well as links to all the reviews, which there are a lot of separate reviews. Most of these books I've actually done separate reviews on throughout the course of the year. I'll link all those in the description box below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.